Hey guys, how you doing? This is Harry from Midnight Burn Media, and I've decided to start a little tutorial series, I suppose, on editing and After Effects. So I thought for the first episode, I'd just do some basic rundowns on how After Effects kind of operates and where things are, like the simple things that you're going to have to need for rendering your finished product, and maybe a little bit about composition. So as you can see here, we have new composition. So this is generally, I think, the window that will pop up when you first open After Effects. I can't actually remember what it looks like when you first download it, because it has been a year or so, a couple of years. So you'll have all your recent projects open here, if you've actually had a go before this, and then you'll have all these other little options. But let's just go ahead and make a new composition. So what a composition is basically it's like a workspace. So here we'll just go with like the basic kind of dimensions, which is 720p, which is 1280 pixels wide by 720 pixels high, and the frame rate will vary in terms of what kind of footage you have. Your preset here, you can just have it on custom. Like I think, see, my one's all hooked up to one that's already kind of done, but you can make it custom and just play with the width and whatever you want. But so you can name your composition if you want, but we probably don't need to go through that now. And then here's duration. So that's obviously how long your composition will be. So let's just go with maybe a 1 minute one. So that's your minute, that's your seconds, and I think this one's your frames. So let's go with a minute. Yeah, we'll go with a minute. So you hit OK, and then you get this composition, which is a black screen. And you might be thinking, kind of like, okay, I got this now. What do I do? Like, what do I do with it? So down here, this is your timeline. So this is where any footage that you bring in, this is where you end up editing it. So let's just have a look what I have here. Let's bring in my intro. So yeah, to import, you just drag it into this big space here, and then you click on project up here, and then you get all these. This is where all your imported footage will be. So to get into the timeline, which will bring it up in here, in this composition you've got here, your new comp, you just drag it down into the source like this, or you can drag it onto here, onto your composition that you got, and spacebar just plays it through, and then you'll see how you got the little green bit here, and that's basically rendering it out. And you generally only have to render that out once, and that's just for previewing. So you can do that, go back to the start. Midnight Burn Media. So that's how you get the footage onto it. Let's see what else we would have a chat about. Sorry guys, lost my train of thought. Alright, how about rendering? Let's have a look at rendering. So once you got your footage all like dropped in, and say you got a couple, you can move this up and down. Let's make it longer. But let's say you want to edit, you want to export it, which is, this took me quite a while to figure out how to actually get some footage out of After Effects. You're going to go up to composition, and you're going to go add to render queue, and then you're going to bring this up here, and you're going to go down. So go down to lossless down here, and that'll bring up all your different kind of settings. So generally, if you have your composition set right, you're not going to want to change that much, because you've already got it. See here, you've got your 720p here. You don't really need to resize or anything. So I usually just put audio output, because every time that actually is off. So if you've used music, you have to be really careful that you don't do that. Then have to render it out, and then realize you don't have the audio, and then you have to go back and redo it again. So that's always good to tap, just to make sure that you got that right. But for now we don't need it, because my intro doesn't have any sound on it. And in this output too, that's where your edited video is going to go to. So that gives you a chance to rename it, choose somewhere for it to go. And for the tutorial I won't actually render it, but you know what I mean. You hit save, and then it'll put it in the composition. Let's have a look. Intro, save, and then you can render it right out, and then it will just render through. I won't show you just because short on time, but basically, yeah, that's how you render it out. And generally, I find that the files are absolutely huge from After Effects. So I would suggest getting either another video editor, because After Effects more or less is meant to be a tweaking kind of like, you know, After Effects. So you're adding extra content to an already edited piece of work, but I find it a lot easier just to edit straight from here. But that one downside is the sheer size of the file. Like this little logo here that I made the other day was about 10 meg, and it's, you know, a 5-second clip. And when I rendered it out in, well, I used Premiere to render out, and after I rendered that out, it was about like less than a meg. So it's just like or example, like one of my edits that I put up was a minute long, and that was about 5 gig worth of edited like footage from After Effects. So I'd definitely recommend getting either Premiere Pro or iMovie, or I guess even, I cringe at this because I don't really like Windows Movie Maker, but if that's all you have, Windows Movie Maker could even be okay just to render out the file to make it a bit smaller, because the size that After Effects renders is pretty much like you can't really use it at all. So that's editing. Sorry, rendering. Let's have a look up here. A couple more things. So you have the hand tool, and that just moves the hand tool. That just moves the composition around. So when you zoom in, I'm zooming in with the scroll wheel. By the way, it's your normal scrolling that zooms in and out. And so, you know, if you write up and you need to get detail in there, that's what the hand tool is good for. And what else we got? We got I'm not really sure. I don't really play with any of these. This is a shape layer, so you can get all your different shapes, and then that varies between what kind of layer you have. Let's leave that on rectangle. And then you got the pen tool, which is very handy. I might do a tutorial on that a bit later on, because it's a bit complicated just to cover in this tutorial. So yeah, if you're keen on a pen tool tutorial, just, you know, leave a comment saying, yep, pen tool, come on. Basically, pen tool allows you to trace things, and then that can allow you to get cool effects happening, that kind of thing. And then you got text tool. That's pretty obvious. Click where you want. No. Burn. No, burn. So yeah, that's a pretty obvious one. Then you got the paint tool, eraser tool, clone stamp tool. I don't really use them in After Effects very much. And you got the rotor brush tool, which actually is what allows you to knock out backgrounds and that kind of thing. So I can also do a tutorial on that if you guys are keen. Just, you know, let me know and I can have a go at a tutorial for that. Puppet pin, I'm not really sure what that is either, but yeah, that's basically it for that toolbar. And then got a few things down here. You got motion blur, and then if you enable this motion blur and then enable motion blur down here, that allows this kind of effect that I had in here before, how the moon kind of rushes in. That's motion blur. And you can toggle switches as well, which will hide certain things. So you got, I think this is frame blend. Yes, that makes it a bit smoother. Adjustment layer just says like if that works, like if the adjustment layer applies or not. And a 3D layer allows you to do three-dimensional rotation. So if you don't really care about that, you can just hide that, and then you'll be able to get other things, other modes. And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Photoshop, but a lot of these modes are covered in Photoshop, like an exclusion layer. Won't work on this clip, but so you have a blue on an orange background, and you use an exclude, or say blue on an orange background, and you use an exclusion layer. It'll do the opposite of the color that you've got. So like, actually no, let's say you have an orange. Let's say black on white, and you put a black square in, and then you do an exclusion layer that'll flip the color, so it'll invert it. So say I have the white one on there, it'll flip it to black. But that doesn't always work, which is a bit strange. But yeah, sometimes layers there don't work. And they have a couple of other layers. Basically, just have a play with these layers. Like, they're all pretty self-explanatory. Overlay kind of makes it blend in with the whatever's behind it. So it won't work on black and white, but you can do it with a couple of other things. But yeah, just have a play with them. They're all pretty fun to have a play with, but I don't find them too effective in editing. I find them more effective in still images, such as Photoshop and that kind of thing. And then up here you got all your files, so you can import manually if you want, rather than just dragging and dropping. Project settings, you can have a play with a few little things in there. I usually just leave that how it is. It's generally pretty good. And then obviously here's your save, and you're definitely be saving your projects because you don't want to be caught having none there. And then if you noticed before when I made my text layer, it was tiny down here, and I had to resize it just by click this, drag, and that was because I had it set up here. You can set how big your layers are. See here, I've got it set to 2 frames because I was doing some time lapse kind of stuff before, and I had to have it on 2 frames. But you can change that to length of composition, and then when you make a new layer, so let's go new, let's make a solid layer, which it is what it is. It's just a solid piece of whatever, just a solid color. And you see how now that is a whole composition length. So that can be a bit handy because you don't have to always resize. Like if you want a color correction through a whole composition, that's a lot easier, that kind of thing. And then you can just rescale. But let's have a little bit of a peek through layers. So in the layers you have quite a few little options. You have an adjustment layer, which is something that goes on top of all your layers down here, and that will bring up several kind of, you can put a color correction on that, and instead of having to apply it to every single layer, it'll do it over the whole thing. Null object is very handy because you can parent other certain clips down here to that null. So if you use a null object for, say, motion tracking, you can parent other things to that null object. So that can be very handy. I haven't used camera very much. It's something I want to kind of look into, but I guess it's not too big when you're just editing footage you've already shot. But that can be very handy for 2D animation and things. And if you guys are keen, I can even look into that and do a tutorial on that too. A solid is usually good if you want to make a shape or that kind of thing. But then again, there's a shape layer here. Solid's more like, say you want to put a background over this. So let's make a solid, make a black solid, and then you can like change the transformation setting, change the opacity, that kind of thing. But yes, that, and then so you got all your layers. So that's basically your layers right there. And then you got all your effects. So you got a heap of different effects that can all be played with. I won't really go into too much detail there. Might do a couple tutorials on some things later on if you guys are keen. And then here's where all your windows are. So if you're missing certain things, characters, text, effects and presets is the search bar for effects and presets, which is over here. Then you got all the different things that can pop up. So track is how you motion track. I can do a motion track tutorial too if you guys are keen. That's that pretty much. And then I'll just quickly cover transformation. So transformation is within your image, within your layer rather, is position. So you can go left to right, up and down. You can scale, you can make bigger, smaller. You can rotate. You can change the opacity, which is always handy. Nice to have little fades in and out. Anchor points is this middle point in here, and I generally like to leave that centered. But then again, it does depend how you're, what you're using, like what you're using the shape for. And you see there's little stopwatches next to it. This is how you can keyframe. So if you click that, you'll see this little diamond pops up, and the diamond will pop up here too. And then you just go to wherever you want, and you can keyframe again and say I want to move it up. You can just do that, and then you'll see that throughout the composition it's moved right down. So that's just very basic keyframing. But yeah, I think that was a fairly decent way to just a general overview of After Effects. And if you have any questions, just drop it in the comments below, and I'll answer as best as I can. And definitely just hit me up if you have any extra tutorials you want to see, any effects you've seen me do that you're keen on, and I might do a tutorial for you guys. So yeah, that's been my first tutorial on just the basics of After Effects. So thanks for watching, and yeah, definitely hit me up with some comments if you have any problems. Thanks guys, see ya.